Imagine a war breaking out in Europe. Not in Ukraine, but further south, in the crystal-clear waters of the Mediterranean. Two modern air forces engage in a deadly dogfight. Missiles are locked, pilots are screaming over the radio, and ships are maneuvering for the kill. But here is the twist. Both sides are flying American-made F-16s. Both sides are members of NATO. And both sides are supposed to be allies. This isn't a Tom Clancy novel. This is the very real ticking time bomb between Greece and Turkey. While the world watches Russia and the Middle East, a dangerous fracture is widening in the southern flank of the Western Alliance. We are talking about two nations with a history of blood, betrayal, and broken treaties, now armed to the teeth with the latest military technology. From disputes over who owns the gas under the sea to threats of invasion that are spoken openly on national television, the tension is at a boiling point. Today we are going to look past the tourist brochures of Santorini and the bustling streets of Istanbul to reveal the terrifying geopolitical chess game that could shatter NATO and plunge the Mediterranean into chaos. The first ask, don't miss the truth. But before we map out this potential battlefield, I have a small but important favor to ask. We put hundreds of hours of research into these scripts to bring you the unbiased reality that mainstream news often skips. If you want to understand the world without the noise, please hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on the notification bell so you are the first to know when we drop a new investigation. It really helps support the channel and keeps us independent. The context, enemies or allies? To understand why the situation is so volatile, you have to understand the geography. The Aegean Sea is a nightmare for mapmakers and a headache for admirals. It is thousands of islands, rocks, and islets scattered like broken glass between the Greek mainland and the Turkish coast. Most of these islands, even some that are just a stone's throw from the Turkish beaches, belong to Greece. For decades, this was an uneasy status quo. But recently, something changed. The rhetoric from Ankara, Turkey's capital, has shifted from diplomatic disagreement to open threats. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has famously said, "We can come suddenly one night." That is not the language of diplomacy. That is the language of invasion. On the other side, Greece has been frantically buying advanced French fighter jets and American frigates, turning their islands into fortresses. They are preparing for the worst. But what actually triggered this latest slide toward the edge? The root cause, the blue homeland. The conflict is driven by a Turkish doctrine called Mavi Vatan, or the blue homeland. For nearly a century, Turkey felt boxed in. If you look at the map from their perspective, the Greek islands form a wall that effectively blocks Turkey, a country with a massive coastline, from accessing the open ocean. Under current international law, islands have their own maritime borders. If Greece were to exercise its full rights to expand its territorial waters from 6 miles to 12 miles, Turkey would be practically landlocked in the Aegean. Their ships would have to ask for Greek permission just to leave their own ports. Turkey has declared that if Greece expands its waters to 12 miles, it would be a casus belli, a formal cause for war. This isn't just about fishing rights or tourism. It is about national survival and pride. Turkey views itself as a rising superpower, a successor to the Ottoman Empire, and they believe the current borders are an unfair cage designed by European powers 100 years ago to keep them weak. They want to redraw the map, and they are willing to push the envelope to do it. The energy wars, treasure under the sea. However, in the 21st century, conflicts are rarely just about lines on a map. They are about resources. In recent years, massive deposits of natural gas have been discovered in the Eastern Mediterranean. We are talking about billions of dollars worth of energy that could power Europe and break its dependence on Russian gas. Everyone wants a piece of this pie. Greece, Cyprus, Egypt, and Israel have formed alliances to drill and transport this gas. Turkey feels left out. Ankara claims that because the Greek islands sit on Turkey's continental shelf, the gas underneath them actually belongs to Turkey. They have sent exploration ships, escorted by warships, into waters that Greece claims as its own. This has led to terrifying standoffs where frigates from both countries have collided, literally bumping into each other on the high seas. It is a game of chicken played with billion-dollar warships, and one wrong move, one panicked captain, could turn a collision into a shooting war. The global code, traveling smart in a chaotic world. When we talk about regions like the Aegean, places that are breathtakingly beautiful yet politically fragile, it brings up a major concern for travelers. Millions of people visit Greece and Turkey every year. How do you stay safe when the geopolitical ground is shifting? This is where the Global Code comes in. I've been using the Global Code recently, and it is a game changer for anyone who wants to see the world. It's not just a travel guide, it's an intelligence briefing. They break down the safety levels, cultural nuances, and political stability of destinations in real time. Whether you are a digital nomad working from a cafe in Athens or a backpacker exploring Istanbul, the Global Code gives you the ground truth that travel agencies won't tell you. In a world where tensions can flare up overnight, having that kind of awareness isn't just smart, it's essential. If you want to travel with confidence and really understand the places you visit, you need to check them out. The militarization, buying power. Let's get back to the hardware because the arms race happening right now is unprecedented. For a long time, the balance of power was roughly equal. But Turkey's removal from the American F-35 program, after they bought Russian missile systems, changed the math. Suddenly, Turkey's air force is aging. They are flying older F-16s that need upgrades. Greece saw an opportunity. They went on a shopping spree. They bought Rafale fighter jets from France, which are incredibly advanced. They signed a deal to acquire the F-35, the most advanced stealth fighter on the planet. If this continues, by the end of this decade, the Greek Air Force will technologically dominate the skies over the Aegean. Turkey knows this. This window of vulnerability is making Ankara nervous and perhaps more aggressive. They are doubling down on their domestic industry, building their own drones, the famous Bayraktars, and trying to develop their own fighter jet, the Khan. But developing a jet takes time, and time is a luxury they might not have. The island fortresses. A treaty broken? Another major flashpoint is the status of the islands themselves. According to the treaties signed in the early 20th century, specifically the Treaty of Lausanne and the Treaty of Paris, many of the Greek islands near the Turkish coast are supposed to be demilitarized. That means no bases, no heavy weapons, no soldiers. Turkey accuses Greece of violating these treaties by moving troops and heavy artillery onto islands like Lesbos, Chios, and Samos. They have released drone footage showing armored vehicles arriving on these islands. Ankara argues that if Greece violates the demilitarization clauses, they forfeit sovereignty over the islands. Essentially, Turkey says, if you arm them, they aren't yours anymore. Greece counters that they have a right to self-defense. They point to the Army of the Aegean that Turkey maintains just across the water, a massive amphibious assault force equipped with landing craft designed for one thing, invading islands. Athens argues, how can we leave these islands undefended when you have an invasion fleet parked 5 miles away? It is a classic security dilemma. One side arms to defend itself, the other side sees it as aggression and arms up in response. The Cyprus factor, the frozen conflict. We cannot talk about Greece and Turkey without talking about the open wound that is Cyprus. In 1974, following a Greek-backed coup, Turkey invaded the northern third of the island. Since then, Cyprus has been divided. The south is the Republic of Cyprus, a member of the EU. The north is the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, a state recognized by absolutely no one in the world except Turkey. Recently, tensions in Cyprus have flared up again. There have been skirmishes in the UN buffer zone. Turkey is pushing for a two-state solution, effectively asking the world to recognize their conquest. Greece and the rest of the world say absolutely not. They want reunification. Cyprus is essentially an unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Eastern Mediterranean, and neither side is willing to let the other control it fully. Any war between Greece and Turkey would almost certainly start, or quickly spread, to Cyprus. The American base, a new player. There is another player on the board that has made Turkey very uncomfortable: the United States. In recent years, the U.S. has dramatically increased its military presence in Greece, specifically at the port of Alexandroupoli. This port is near the Turkish border. The U.S. uses it to move tanks and supplies into Eastern Europe to support NATO against Russia. However, Turkish nationalists view this differently. They look at the map and see American bases in Crete, American bases in mainland Greece, and now a huge hub in Alexandroupoli. They feel encircled. Erdogan has publicly asked, who are these bases set up against? The implication is that America is siding with Greece to contain Turkey. This paranoia drives Turkey further away from the West and closer to acting unpredictably. The nightmare scenario. How it starts. So how does a war actually happen? Nobody believes that Erdogan or the Greek Prime Minister wakes up one morning and orders a full-scale invasion. That is suicide. The real danger is an accident. Imagine this. A Turkish drone flies over a Greek island to gather intelligence. A Greek battery locks onto it. The Turkish operator jams the radar. A Greek pilot is scrambled to intercept. In the heat of the moment, a maneuver goes wrong. A plane clips a wing and crashes. Or a warning shot is mistaken for a kill shot. Suddenly, you have dead pilots or sunk ships. In today's age of social media, the nationalism on both sides would explode instantly. The leaders would be under immense pressure not to back down. Save face becomes the most dangerous phrase in politics. Before the diplomats can even get on the phone, the missiles might already be flying. This is the sleepwalking into war scenario that keeps NATO generals awake at night. The NATO dilemma. Article 5. If shooting starts, what does NATO do? Article 5 states that an attack on one is an attack on all. But what happens when the attacker and the defender are both in the club? It breaks the alliance. The United States would likely try to mediate, but if they are forced to choose, they are in an impossible bind. Greece is the strategic gatekeeper of the Balkans. Turkey is the gatekeeper of the Black Sea and the Middle East. Losing either one is a catastrophe for Western security. Putin, of course, is watching this with a smile. Nothing would benefit Russia more than seeing the southern flank of NATO destroy itself. A war between Greece and Turkey would distract the West from Ukraine, shatter European unity, and create a vacuum that Russia could exploit. Is there a way out? Is it all doom and gloom? Not necessarily. Despite the rhetoric, trade between the two countries continues. The people of Greece and Turkey actually share a lot of culture, food, and history. When earthquakes strike, they are often the first to send help to each other, what's known as earthquake diplomacy. There have been recent attempts to cool the temperature. Leaders have met, hands have been shaken. They have agreed to keep communication channels open. But the core issues, the maritime borders, the gas, Cyprus, the demilitarization, remain unsolved. These are deep structural problems that can't be fixed with a smile and a handshake. As long as these fundamental disagreements exist, the potential for conflict remains high. What happens next? The next few years are critical. Both nations face domestic political pressure. Erdogan is looking to secure his legacy as the man who restored Turkish power. Greece is determined not to be bullied. We will likely see more gray zone tactics, cyber attacks, weaponized migration, where refugees are pushed across borders to create chaos, and aggressive patrolling. The hope is that economic necessity will force a compromise. Both countries are battling inflation and economic challenges. A war would destroy their economies overnight. Tourism would vanish. Shipping insurance would skyrocket. The rational move is to talk. But history teaches us that nations don't always act rationally when pride and territory are on the line. This is one of the most complex and dangerous standoffs in the world, and it is happening in one of the most beloved travel destinations on Earth. I want to know what you think. Is Turkey's blue homeland a legitimate demand for fair access to the sea, or is it expansionism? Is Greece right to militarize the islands for defense, or is that a provocation? Let me know in the comments below. I read through them, and the debate there is often just as interesting as the video itself. If you found this deep dive helpful, please share it. Send it to a friend who loves history, or someone planning a trip to the Mediterranean. The more we understand these conflicts, the better we can navigate the world. Don't forget to like the video to help the algorithm, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel for more geopolitical analysis that respects your intelligence. Thanks for watching, stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.